Good morning. How are all of you today? I hope you're all doing great and having a great weekend. Today is October 2nd and it's time to put together our block 10 of our year-long sew-along for the Bernina 7 series group on Facebook and Bernina Beginners Embroidery 7 and 8 series. So as usual, if you've watched previous videos, you've seen me lay out all my blocks that I've done so far so that I can kind of make sure my fabrics that I choose each month, since my quilt is scrappy, that they'll all work in the same quilt. Everything will kind of meld once I get it all together. And this month I want you to, we're just going to kind of touch on this, but remember, when we put our quilt together, our blocks are going to be set on point. They won't be square like this, they'll be on point. And I want you to start thinking about sashings and cornerstones, if you want to do a cornerstone, and how we're going to put these blocks together. And you can go back to the January block and see a drawing of the entire quilt. So that will give you some ideas. You don't absolutely have to do it just like that, but we will be putting some sort of sashing between each of our blocks. So let's just, we've got a couple months left, so let's start thinking about that. And so this month's block, back to business here, this month's block is going to take 3 prints and a background fabric. So I've chosen some darks. I've looked at my blocks and I don't have enough darks, so I'm going to do this month's block's going to have some black in it, and I'm going to use this light kind of crackle fabric for my background, and I'm going to fussy cut one of these magnolias somewhere. I'm going to cut out a magnolia for the center of my block. So we're going to be doing just like we've done in the past. I'm going to go and press all these fabrics with Material Magic and get them really super starched, and then I'll be back and we'll do some cutting. And this month's block does have a kind of tricky little place to it, but I'm going to walk you right through it, and it's going to be just fine, and you're going to do great. So I am going to go press, and then I'll be back and we'll start cutting out our pieces to put our units together. here we are all pressed, and I've got everything cut out. And now it's time to do our diagonal marking on the back of all our background blocks. So, just like in previous blocks, we're just going to draw a line corner to corner. And it won't matter what you use to do your marking, because we're going to cut down this line, except on a couple. So I think there's going to be 4 or 8 maybe that we sew right on the line. So use some kind of marker. Usually I use a friction pen, but today I'm going to use a mechanical pencil just because I don't want this to bleed through and be a problem on the front of my quilt someday. So we're going to go through and we are going to mark a diagonal line along all these blocks, and then I will be back. I sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll be back. And we'll start our sewing. I don't think he said that, did he? Okay, we're ready to start putting our block together. I've kind of exploded mine out here to kind of make this a little easier. There's a couple of little tricky spots in this month's block, and so we're going to do those kind of out in the middle, and we're going to start with our corner units, and these are going to be really easy. These are just like we have done in the past on previous blocks. We've got our line drawn on all of our background squares, and these are the 2 7/8 inch squares. These are the 2 7/8 inch squares. So we're going to take a background block and put it on top of our print. And we're going to just do this 4 times. And when we're done, we're going to have 8 half square triangles. We're going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of the line we drew, and then we're going to cut them apart right on the line, and then we're going to press toward the print. So let me go and sew these up real quick, and cut them and press them, and we'll be halfway done with our outer 4 corners on our block. I'm just pinning these. I want them to be as straight as I can get them before I send them through. So I'm just putting a little pin in each one. There's the last one. And I'm going to chain piece these. Is there such a thing as chain pressing? Because I'm going to press them all at the same time too. Okay, here we go, and I am using my 37D foot, so I've got my dual feed down in the back. I'm using a 65/9 needle, Aurifil 50 weight thread. I'm using a 2.5 millimeter length stitch. Let's see, I'm using my black bobbin, and I have the same thread in the bobbin that I have on top. I'm starting on the fabric, and I don't have any thread nesting. My little bonus quilt that I was doing when we first started our block of the month is done. I was using leaders and enders, and we made a bonus blanket for Ava, my little dog, and she's enjoying it quite a lot. So you see I'm just putting these under the foot, one right after the other, and I'm stitching right along the line. And when I get down here, I'm going to turn around and go back. Then we'll be ready to go cut them apart and press them. And then our center block, or our corner block units will go together really, really fast. So I'm just holding the thread a little bit, starting on the fabric, and that first big buzz that you heard when I took my first stitch, that was my first stitch of the day, and that's a systems check that your Bernina goes through. Sometimes we call it the Bernina burp or the Bernina buzz, but it's a quick computerized systems check. Your Bernina is a magnificent machine. They are the best there are, as far as I'm thinking. And I don't go too fast. You guys all know how I feel about sewing fast. I just take my time and enjoy the process. Alright, I'm ready to head over and iron. And then I'm going to square these up to 2.5 inches, I think. I have to look to make sure that I've got the right measurement, but I think it's 2.5 inches. So, and we'll have 8 half square triangles from these 4 pieces. Okay, here we go. Alright, let's get these guys cut apart. I don't want you to be afraid of this next segment that we're going to be doing. When we get our corner segments done, I'm gonna walk you through it real easy and slow. All you have to remember is to just follow the pattern and so I'm going to finger press these a little bit before I take them to the iron. And we're pressing toward the print. Most always you do press toward the darker, and but there's times when you have to press toward the lightest fabric, but I think most of the time you're batting when you get your quilt together to get it quilted. Your batting kind of evens it out on the back side. Alright, I'm going to finish this up and press these, and then we'll true them up. I think they need to be 2.5 inches, and some of them I doubt will need much trimming, but some will. So here's 2.5, so I'll have a little bit to come off both sides, and then we're going to trim off our sailboat sails. I used to say I was going to cut off the dog ears, and Ava got to the place where she wouldn't stay by me when I sewed anymore. So I had to stop saying that. And now I call these sailboat sails. So if you're a quilter and you're talking about cutting off your dog ears, and I think I sewed these together backwards, I'll have to rip them out. See what can happen when you're not thinking. So, but they won't be any trouble to fix. But if your dog isn't as friendly as they used to be, maybe that's it. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to fix these, press everything, and be right back. So I've got them all pressed, and we're gonna true these up to 2.5 inches. So anytime you're truing up a little piece like this, you know, maybe someday you might really enjoy doing miniatures. You want to do it both ways. When I had it turned, when I made my first cut, I could see that it was pretty much 2.5 inches, but you would be surprised. You always want to check it both ways. There's times, and you want to be sure and have this, shaky, this center line on your ruler going right up the seam line. So let me see if I can get over here a little closer, maybe. So I've got my 2.5 inch down here in the lower left hand corner. Here's my 2.5 inches, and here's 2.5 inches, and that line is going right up the middle of my little block. So I know I'm cutting it square. You don't want to cut your little points off, and that's what'll happen if you cut it and you don't have that center line going, that diagonal line going up your little unit. So I love doing little things. I did a quilt in the spring. Let's see, what's it called? Cracker Jack. It was a Kim Deal quilt, and it had little churn dash blocks in it that finished at 3 inches, and they were the most fun to make. I like little things, little miniature quilts. They're great to use around your house for decorations, and they're not near as much trouble to store as a big quilt. Okay, we're going to put our corner segments together. So we're going to lay this out. Here's our bottom left-hand corner. We're going to use 2 of our half square triangles, and they're going to go together just like this, with the background on the outside. And then we're going to take a background square and put here. So if you wanted to, remember when in the printout for this block, I said that if you wanted to use more than 4 fabrics, you could put another print in here. So let's say I wanted to put that in there. I have enough cut to do that. Or I could put this, I could not. Or I could put a different print. You could fussy cut something to put in here. So then we're going to make 4 of these. Just like that. Just like this. And you just always remember, refer to the picture, and just remember that your your little half square triangles, the print points in. So there's 2. I've got a fly who wants to be a YouTuber, I guess. Okay, so I've got these pretty much together here. So we'll go and we're gonna just sew these, and we're gonna do them just like we would do a 4-patch. We'll sew these 2 together this way, and these 2 together this way. And when we do, we'll make sure that our seams go opposite directions, and then we'll sew these 2 pieces together, and we'll do this for all 4 corners. Okay, we have all 4 of our outer corners done. And there we go. So they'll go on the block just like this, and my fussy cut magnolia will be in the middle. So now it's time to do the tricky one, the tricky part of this block. So let's set these aside. We've got them all nice and pressed, so we don't want them to get messed up. And let's bring in our rectangles. So you're going to do, well, we're going to try to do 2 rectangles at a time, 2 at a time. And we're going to do 4 sets, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 that go on our block. So you're going to take, now follow me really close, you're going to take your 2 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles, and you're going to put, see my line across there that I drew, and you're going to put it so that the diagonal goes from top left to bottom right, like here, along here. And on the other side, you're going to reverse it. You're going to put your background on the top of the rectangle, and the line is going to go from top right to bottom left here. And we're going to pin that, because a gazillion things can happen to it between your work surface and your sewing machine. So we're going to put a pin right here, and a pin right here, and we're going to go sew these. And this time, I know you're used to sewing 1/4 inch on both sides of the line, but this time you're going to sew right on the line, right directly on the line. Read your directions and follow the video here, and we're going to sew right on these lines. Then we're going to press this up, and it's going to look like this. It's going to form a V. Actually, you can see the V right here, but when we're done sewing, it's going to look like this. And when we get to this point, watch close, we're going to do the same thing on the bottom of these rectangles, these black or whatever color your print is. For your 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangle, we're going to do the same thing, and the lines are going to go the same way. So we'll put another square on here, and we're going to sew, this one will be turned over, and it's going to go the same way, and it's going to make this little sort of angular stripe on your fabric. When you're done, it's going to look just like this, and we'll do it on both sides. The main thing you have to remember is to keep your lines going the same direction. Don't turn the lines that you drew, don't turn them. So this one's going this way, and this one's going this way. This one's going this way, and this one's going this way. And this is going to be the center. When we put these two little rectangles together, this is going to be the center, and we'll stitch down here. But not till we get these on and get them pressed open. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to sew both of these on, and then I'll be right back and I'll show you what it's supposed to look like again and help you get through this. Okay, all sewed up. I'm going to clean this up just a little bit. It's slightly crooked, which is okay. We usually do true things up. And I've got this little overhang here that I want rid of. And I think I have some at the top too, but I'm going to trim this down to 4.5 inches when I get it together. But this is what you should have. It should look exactly like this. And when you stitch down your drawn line, stitch so that your needle is just to the inside of the line. You remember when Bob Ross used to say, 2 hairs and some air. That's what we want, just this side of the line. And I use the width of my needle, and I just stay that much to that side of the line so that I don't, when I fold it over, it doesn't fall short of the outside edge. You can always trim some off, but if you don't make it to the outside edge when you fold this over, you'll have to restitch it so that it'll fit. So now let's trim these off, these extra triangles, and put together this part of our block. And I'm just doing a 1/4 inch because I might actually sew these triangles together. So I'll leave them together. See how I have my V? Everything should be a V on these. Those will be cute little half-square triangles. They'll be really tiny. They'll be fun to put someplace, on a pot holder or in a border or on the back of a quilt around a quilt label, or, then we don't have any waste. Okay, here we go. Now, we are ready to stitch these two parts of our unit together. So we're going to just put one right on top of the other and line these up. They might match, but if they don't, you'll have to line up your line of stitching. And you can kind of peek here. You can fold this back and peek and see that the black is matching the black, the background is matching the background, and then we'll put a pin right there and make sure it stays put. Same thing down here. We want this to come right out on point, so do the best you can. Just do the best you can and it'll be fine. So now I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch down this side of this little unit, and when I get back we'll true it up and we'll have a look at it. Okay, back. And I've trued this up to 4.5 inches. That's what it needs to be. Looks really good. And my points match real well, both places. So this will give you, if you're a beginner, this gives you just a little bit of a taste of precision piecing. And it is not hard. And if you really wanted to, you could press your seams in opposite directions so that they nest in here. But I'd like you to try matching the seam stitching if you can, if you feel brave and you want to. I'd like you to try it just to get a taste of it. So this is called a chevron, and now you can say that you made a chevron and you are a rock star. So now let's make 3 more, and then we're ready to put our block together. Okay, here we go. Time to see this beauty come together. So let's see. I'm standing this way, so this is the bottom and this is the top to me. So here's my magnolia right side up. So I'm going to put one of my, let's see, I think I'll do it this way. I want to put one of my chevrons here, one here. Watch your picture and make sure that everything's going the right way. And one here. And then we'll put our 4 corner blocks in here. Make sure everything looks right. And I haven't sewed anything wrong side out. There we go. That's pretty. It looks great. Okay. So now the last thing that we need to do is put our rows together and then put our block together like we have done in previous months. We'll sew these to the center, these to the center, these to the center. Then we'll put this piece and this piece right sides together and we'll stitch a 1/4 inch. I don't even think there's any seams to match up except these corners here. So you'll want to be careful when you go across here not to chop your point off. If you want to put it on the other way, you can. But then you have to worry about you chopping your point off when you put your sashing on. So I'm going to do mine this way. Okay, I'm going to go put this baby together. And then I'll be back and we'll check and make sure it's the right size, and then block 10 will be done. Here's our block, all done. It's really pretty. I like it a lot, and it's going to go with the rest of my quilt. Check it for size. This might be, wow, I think this is the closest that I have come all year. This looks real good. Yep, your block should be 12.5 inches square. And you have learned how to make a chevron this month. You guys are doing wonderful things on your quilting journey. I'm so proud of you all. Hurry and make this block and post your pictures so that I can see all your beautiful colors. And I did kind of fib to you, although I didn't mean to. So I mentioned when you were going to go ahead and set your block together that you would only need to match up these 4 corners, but you do have to kind of watch here and here, and then you don't want to chop off your points we kind of touched on that. And this is the way I pressed mine this time. I pressed my chevrons open. They can be to one side. You know, it'll be just fine. If you press them to one side, it'll be just fine. But I had so much trouble this year with some of my blocks being, you know, like an 1/8 or so inch off on maybe top corners, bottom corners, and you know, I just started thinking, well, maybe I should be pressing my seams open, and then I would be spot on. So I just went rogue this time and pressed some of my seams open, but you know, everything else is pressed the way that my directions tell you to press. So if you want to press your chevron seams open, you can, but be very careful, because this is bias. These angular lines of stitching, those are biased, so you'll want to be real careful pressing those. And I don't use steam in my quilts, so this is just with Terrio Magic and a dry iron. So I hope that you will enjoy making this block, and I hope you'll have a lot of fun doing it. And if you need to, all you have to do is ask for help. There's plenty of people that will help, and of course I will be looking at the comments, and I read and try to answer every single comment. So if you are confused about something, just post a comment, send me a message on Facebook, whatever you need to do, tag me on the group, and I'll come in and I'll be sure and help you. So have fun, have a great month of October, enjoy your sewing time, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of your quilting journey.